So I wanted to talk about female worth and kind of female body image, because I think obviously Lou Ferrug's Into the Manosphere came out and it's blown up all over social media. And a few weeks ago, I was watching about America's Next Top Model. There's a documentary on Netflix about that process, and they kind of interview Tyra Banks and they go through some sensationalist things that happened then. And I think there's kind of a current theme around female worth and female bodies in the media, in the kind of Netflix sphere at the moment. So one of the things that was a takeaway from me from watching the Louis Theroux documentary is this concept that men think women have worth because they were born with physical attributes that men like tits. And in the Tyra Banks documentary, it talks about America's Next Top Model and how women's bodies were scrutinised on a public stage. So Tyra had opinions about people's weight, things like their teeth. There was cultural appropriation, and there was racism. There was a bit of homophobia in there as well. There was a bit of really dicey. There was a really dicey issue with a lady where the company had responsibility for her safety, and she kind of got herself into this sexual situation that was unsafe for her. So there's been a lot of problematic issues with the America's Next Top Model industry. And what was really interesting is when I watched it a few weeks ago, I was saying to myself, thank God I wasn't 18 at this time when people were so nasty about people's body image and people's weight. That they were saying horrendous things to very, very slim women. Women were passing out on this program. They were taking diet pills. They were really unwell, and anybody that was bigger was vilified as plus size. But the whole point is that Tyra Banks was saying that she was trying to create normal everyday representation models instead of these super skinny models, but the whole program went against that ethos. And even Tyra Banks to call herself a plus size model at the weight that she was at is incredible to me. Anyway, so I was saying to myself, oh, thank God I wasn't at that teenage age at the time that this program aired. But when I looked back at when the first type of episodes aired, I would have been 4 years of age, and I don't live in the US of A, so this stuff has kind of filtered at later points into the UK, but it was reflective of a time period. So what we forget is that young children at ages 4 and 5 all the way up to 15 are seeing things in the media that reflect their sense of worth. So women and young children are realizing from very young age, I have nieces who at that age group, that 5-year age group, understand the concept of what's fat, and they will be able to pick out physical assets that are good and that are not in women. And as someone who's always been a bit curvier, I've had this kind of 90s special K diet ideology being said to me from a very young age. And now we're in an age where we kind of have the gym and people are a bit more understanding of body shapes. But that has shaped my sense of self through the 90s and the noughties up to where we are now. So it's sometimes very difficult to teach your brain that that was something that was false, because some of these models that they classed as plus size in the 90s, I would be classed as plus size. I would be classed as probably overweight 25 years ago. I don't think I'm overweight. I think I'm a healthy weight, but I have a pear-shaped body shape, and I have thighs, I have a bum, and this is things that people turn around now and say, well, this is something that you should be proud of. People like that. People want to pay for this Kim K aesthetic. But these women like me, who have body shapes like me, we were taught that that was not the ideal for 25 years plus. So we have got better, but women are still having to try and contort to what the current popular model is. And with the manosphere, it's women's bodies have been objectified and sexualized for as long as the universe has been going, human beings have been going. But you have to have compassion that you've had to unlearn a narrative, and a lot of people have assigned worth to women from their physicality, whether we want to or not, and women have grown up understanding that. You've understood from a very young age which are the pretty girls, which are the girls that get attention, which are the girls that the boys fancy, you know, like you're learning that from a very young age, and you're kind of assigning your worth where you fit. So then when you get into adulthood, it's the first time you challenge these narratives that your worth is beyond your physicality. But I think as women, we have to have compassion that we've grown up in an industry and in a world where sometimes there is a very distinct gap between who is desirable and who is not. And it's a form of brainwashing that we've had for a long time. And every time you decide to go against it, you decide to express your physicality, or you decide to look at your body and be proud of it, you are breaking that stigma. You are breaking that narrative, and it is a difficult and long road. But know that every time you are putting love and care into your body by looking after it, by exercising it, but also being compassionate to the days when you don't feel so good, realise that the 90s culture is not a reflection of your worth. The manosphere's idea of your physicality is not a reflection of your worth. And that as women, we have so much to offer beyond our physical bodies. Another huge issue is when women age, our worth diminishes because we age, we're less sexually attractive to men. And men can argue that they have their sense of worth from their body, and I understand, but it doesn't ever stop them getting a promotion. It doesn't ever stop them being paid more than women. I saw a really interesting video on Instagram the other day, and it showed this woman who was speaking to really successful Dutch men. She was a Dutch journalist, and she decided to start the interviews by asking them questions that female Dutch politicians, business owners, CEOs have been asked in interviews. And the men got very uncomfortable because there were questions like around physicality and around whether they thought they were good enough for the position, and whether they just got it on their looks and things like that. And the men were like, feel very uncomfortable. And then they kind of clicked what she was doing. And she said, these have been asked to females before, these questions. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about your future daughters being asked these questions? And I think it was quite eye-opening to them that is what women have to deal with. There's always a caveat where our worth is explained by our physicality, not from our credentials, not from our personality, not from our drive. And if we are very driven, then it's usually got negative connotations in the press, that you are aggressive, or you're too assertive, or you're too masculine. So I think it's worth knowing, and it's worth speaking woman to woman, that this is a really complex system, and it's okay to realise that you're still carrying ideologies from 25 years ago that aren't true. But you have to have compassion. It's your journey. A lot of people I know seem confused when I talk about my physicality and my body, because they're like, oh, you know, you should be happy, you're healthy, whatever. But they don't realise that you've had these comments be part of your psyche for a long time. Very close people that I love very much have made comments about their bodies, and they've had that 90s dieting culture, and by default, it's been projected onto me. Comments about dress sizes, comments about portion sizes, comments about whatever. As a woman, those things stick, and it's okay that they're still there. But every time you challenge them and say, your reflection on what I'm eating, your reflection on what dress size I wear, your reflection on the size of my legs is not a reflection on my worth. It's a reflection on your character. If I feel happy and healthy, if my BMI is in a good place, if I'm exercising regularly and I'm eating the right foods, your opinion doesn't matter. And even when you have days when you're like, their opinion really has bothered me today, it's trying to remind yourself that their opinion on your body is not a reflection of your worth. And every time you challenge that, even in small incremental ways, you are reprogramming your brain to remember that you have worth exactly as you are today. So remember that.